Okay, so today I'm going to install the Currie Currectlync drag bar and tie rod. And what I did ahead of time was they had said in the instructions that the grease overflow on this cup, which is this right here, needed to be moved from the front side or over by the disc to the inside of the Jeep, so that if any grease came out of here, it wouldn't get on the discs if you didn't have a dust protector on the back side of your discs. I do, but I decided to fix that anyway, just in case. It's just easier. So to remove this spring, I grabbed, well, I'm backwards. This is the edge I grabbed to put it back on. Let me flip it over. I grabbed this edge right here. Hard to see, sorry. Anyway, I grabbed that edge with a screwdriver and I pulled it up, and I just used the screwdriver to get underneath the spring once that I got over the top here, and I walked it around until I got it completely off. That spring wraps around about 1 3/4 times, so you just walk it around until you get the spring completely off. I'm not going to show that part because it was kind of a bear. To put it back on, I grabbed this side here, this little lip, and the spring shrinks considerably once you pull it off. I bent this side out enough. Obviously you don't bend it too much to where you distort it, but I bent it enough to grab the inside of this cup, and then I did the same thing. I reversed it and I walked the spring back around again. What I did was I would use the screwdriver as kind of a pry and a ramp to run that spring down, but I would each time make sure that I moved the rubber cup out of the way, because you don't want to damage the seal. And I did not pinch the seal anywhere along the path, so that went really well. The other thing I did was, you can see that you can see that there's a hole here for the cotter pin to go through this arm. That is going to line up with the drag link, this component here. So essentially what I did was I estimated. I looked at the Jeep and I looked at that angle that the drag link was at in the Jeep. I didn't measure it. I probably should have, just to save myself the headaches. And I wanted the cotter pin to fall inside of this slot that they've milled in here. So to do that, I just drew a black line on top. It's kind of hard to see it. Right along the same as where the pin would go, so I could actually tell what I'm doing. And then took the 2 nuts that come with this assembly, and they're a 3/4 inch wrench will do it. I put them on and I locked them together on the end here. Once they were locked together, I was able to use one wrench and spin the nut to spin the entire bolt here, basically. These are in there quite snug, so if you tried to put a pin through here or an Allen wrench through that hole and turn that to make it match up with this, it's just not going to happen. You're going to struggle the whole way or bend everything you have trying to do it. So let me zoom in a little bit here. You can see that's a little better. So I would just keep spinning it, and then I would place this over the top of it and just look through the hole here to see was I close to what I'm aiming for with the bolts on there, so I could keep spinning without taking it all apart every time. And once I was close, I took it all apart, and hopefully that will make it somewhat simple. The other thing I did was, and it's in their instructions, is I disassembled everything, all of these joints with threads, and I put anti-seize on them, so both sides, as well as the drag link, because the drag link's got a few here as well, and of course the threads of the bolts. And I lubed up these Zerk fittings. Went ahead and lubed those. That's why I've got the caps on there, to make sure that they don't come off. I know on one of the videos I saw on an older install of one of these, this Zerk fitting was actually on the back side, but they took somebody's advice and they moved it over here to the side so it doesn't interfere when you steer. That was apparently it came very, very close to hitting something. If you didn't get it just right or change it, you'd have a problem. I measured all the parts inside of the Jeep. So I basically measured from the Zerk fitting in the middle on the drag link all the way over, and I measured the Zerk fitting to the Zerk fitting on the tie rod. And my hope is that as I assemble this, it will be less of a fight. I also put a mark on the steering, so when I assemble this, I can go ahead and move the steering arm, pitman arm, sorry, to that point, and then adjust the drag link and hopefully have a pretty close fit when that's over. You can see that the cups are leaking grease pretty much all throughout this assembly, and that's the reason I'm changing it. I don't know if you can see it from here. It's kind of, I don't feel it crawling all over the garage floor. My steering stabilizer is a Mopar. I have the feeling it's the OEM component and hasn't been changed since, so obviously I'm going to replace that as well. I also purchased these Longacre toe-in plates for checking and adjusting the toe-in on the tires or wheels, whatever you want to call it. I checked this before I took it apart, and they were right on, even after 4.5 years of kind of abusing this. I'm not real hard on it, but I haven't been nice to it either. I am going to check it. I'm going to check it again using a, on the discs, I'm going to put a couple of straight edges and then measure those out and see how they come out on the discs directly. I suspect they'll come out pretty well. So what I have to do first is take off the cotter pins throughout this assembly. There are multiple, obviously, one on the left, one on the right, one at the point where the tie rod and the drag link come together, and another up here at the steering stabilizer. So I'm breaking all the castle nuts free. I'm just using a ratchet style of wrench and a rubber mallet to break them free. So on the old drag link, you can see that they've put a hole here for the shock stabilizer, and on the new, nothing. So I think what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to raise the drag link up and just position it. I've got the shock or the stabilizer completely out as far as throw, and I'm going to just mark on there about where I need to put the bracket, and we'll see if that helps me at all or if I'm just wasting my time, and I'll throw this little piece of video away. Okay, I think my plan here is to take this bolt off of the stabilizer first. That's the easy one. Then I may take this bolt off next, separate that, and then the tie rod over here. I had read somebody else saying, you know, leave the bolts in as you break all this free so that the spring tension doesn't send things flying and things start falling on the floor. I don't think I can get anything up inside of this, so I'm gonna have to use the pickle fork to separate that from the pitman arm. There's just too many things going on up there. I can't see getting that tool up there, so we'll see. Keep in mind, I've never done this kind of work out here on the front end of any vehicle before, so this is all learn as I go. Okay, so that bolt may be threaded into the arm. I don't know. I just went ahead and disassembled it from the top and took the stabilizer off. That has a surprising amount of tension still. I wouldn't have guessed that at all over the amount of years I'm guessing that's been in. And now I will attempt the pickle fork on this. This ought to be a real joy, having never done that. So. Okay, my guess is the pitman arm is going to rotate as I try to do this, but I'm going to try and get it at an angle where it doesn't. I could go through the back side, I guess, but let's see what happens from the front side. This will be fun. Oh, duh. Let's finish off that bolt. What do you say? Okay, I'm leaving that bolt on there by a few threads anyway, just to keep things from flying. Okay, well, I thought that'd go easier. Maybe I need a hammer with a little less rubber on it. Okay, so I used a regular hammer with metal to metal, and that knocked it loose. I like the other hammer because it's got a lot more weight behind it, and I don't own a sledge, so that's okay. It came off. Okay, this one I'm going to try with the puller and see if this is any easier. I took the nut all the way off. It looked like it was going to interfere with this, so we'll see what happens when it releases. It does not look like it's grabbed the other side of the arm, so I'm going to reposition it. Pretty sure this is just going to pop off. I'm not real happy with the fit on this. It actually looks too big. They only had one size, so oh, there we go, done. Okay, since this is the last part holding together, I'm going to try and leave this castle nut on here so it doesn't fall to the floor. We'll see how it goes. Hoping it doesn't get in the way. Anything. There we go. Okay, so cheesy little tool worked well. Happy with that. And I'll just drop this down now. Okay, so this is the last part before we can start reassembling. I don't think it'll be too bad. It's just getting it down off of here without making a huge ruckus. And it is now fully disassembled. I just have to take the steering stabilizer out completely and put the new one in there to get that started in the right direction. Of course, it makes sense that if you're dealing with all SAE stuff that you would have a metric down here. So that's a 15 millimeter. I think they threw that in there just to piss you off because I got under there with all the wrong wrenches. Okay, so that's a 15 on the front and an 18 on the back because the back spins when you try and turn this off. So do enjoy that. Remember to bring some metrics to play. Okay, since you're in here and you've got the wheels off, those fittings are nice and easy to get to, so I would lube those. We got this arm onto here, but we are pointing a bit to the left, and I was hoping that wouldn't be a factor, but it is. This is not tight, so it's just an irritant is all. And the drag link, that's actually tight up there. Because there's really not much I can do over there. The other side, okay, so this side didn't really want to get up through this. We ended up using a rubber mallet and just banging on the arm, and that got it to clear. This connection here, tie rod to drag link, my mark is off, but not as far as I thought it would be. So I'm just going to back that out of there and twist that a little more clockwise to get that black mark to line up with the groove in that arm so I can put the key in there. Okay, so we found the steering stabilizer got in the way, so we loosened it, raised it up out of the way, and tightened it back up again because I have to turn the tie rod to get the wheels straight. So we've set up this manner here, and we're going to measure these discs to be straight, and then I'll tackle the steering wheel after the fact. All my great measurements did not work out as I had wished. Once that's straight, then I will take this apart again and make sure that that lines up. I don't think it does at the moment, but you know, one thing at a time, and I'll probably curse myself for going this route and find out that it didn't work the way I planned. So I plan to get onto this side and just grab this tie rod and spin it, and we've got tape measures on the front and back, and we're measured out 33 inches on these levels, straight edges. So I'm gonna try and get them to be about a 1/16 of an inch toe in. That's what I read, so I conflicting. It was like an 1/8 of an 1/16, and when I measured before starting this, it was just a bit over a 1/16. So, and those tires have been wearing really well. So we will attempt to straighten this out. Okay, the sun is up and it's blazing already. That was why I started early. This nut here, getting that to line up wasn't the worst thing in the world, but I did have to jam the nuts together and keep spinning it, probably about putting it in 4 or 5 times before I finally got it exactly where it needed to be. And of course, every time I did that, I moved the joint, and I thought, oh, it doesn't fit, so I turned the entire arm, which was stupid because I love when trucks come by. Mike and I had just adjusted this and had it right on there, and I just unadjusted it. So we're going to put the bars back on the discs and adjust it again because it was so much fun the first time. We can't get over ourselves. So I still have to get the, sorry about the finger in there, I still have to get that cotter pin inside of there, and that looks like it's going to be a hoot because it is recessed pretty well. They mentioned kind of bending it or something like that. I couldn't quite make out what the instructions meant on that. And I had to be able to rotate it. I had to move the shock out of the way, and then I tightened it up to keep it out of the way because this kept rattling it as I spun the arm. There's an indent in there so that this bracket here will not just rotate freely on this unless you take the bolt out, which I guess I could. And now we're going to do the alignment again because yay. However, as I'm looking at things now, the steering marks are lining up. They weren't originally. They're pretty darn close right now. So it'll be just a little bit of a tweak. The camera actually shows it further off. It just depends on what angle you take. Yay. Okay, I've used a small mallet, this thing here, and I'm just tapping on the back here. I think what I'll have to do is I'll have to put sorry about the finger, I'll have to put a screwdriver in there or something just to guide that up to make sure it makes it up into the slot, but I think this might work. So I'm going to keep at this. I'm going to use a pair of pliers and turn that key a little bit, see if I can get it in that way. Okay, so I just tapped it in with a hammer, and I used a small screwdriver and guided this in to make sure it got up on top of here. And then we used the big screwdriver to tap it from this end back here in, and you can see it is now securely in there, so that worked okay. Okay, so Mike is tightening these bolts. We found out the bolts are pretty much set to go on one way. They've got kind of a notch looking thing on one side of the nut, sorry, not bolt. And it acts like a nylon washer. So you kind of have to put them on one direction. We're almost at the full end of the arm to get this on because we're full lock to the passenger side, and it says it's supposed to be leaving about 1/4 inch out of the stabilizer, which we've done. So now he's just attempting to tighten these because it's squirrely, because it keeps moving.
And one of the things you want to make sure of is that you don't get your U-bolt onto your threads.
Right, exactly. U-bolt, no threads, that's perfect. And
that's always a good idea.
I did notice I put the cotter pins on rather funky, but I'm not going to remove them because we don't want to bend the metal again and have it weaken it. So I'm going to leave the cotter pins incorrectly installed, but they are not going to come off and they're not going to allow that nut to move. I kind of blew that. I wasn't really paying attention, I guess, and you can see they're rather stupid looking. They should have looked more like this. Instead, they look like that. So don't penalize me. It was just a stupid mistake, but undoing it's going to require replacing the cotter pins. Okay, so everything's on and assembled. None of the clamps are tight yet. These ones here, so that this can be spun if need be. I'm going to drop it down on its wheels, and I'm going to use the toe-in plates to check it. Steering looked pretty straight, but of course we're not driving it, so heaven only knows. Everything else is tight. New steering stabilizer on. There's the bracket, so the hole goes on the top, the bracket on the back side of it, of course. Just make sure you got enough room for the throw. We had ours went full lock to the passenger side, and we left a little over a 1/4 inch of the shaft sticking out of the stabilizer, and we seem to have full throw to the driver's side when all is assembled. So now come tires. Okay, these bolts here, a 17 and a 9/16 worked to tighten them. And these, of course, are different. I'll come back and tell you what size they were when I crawl out from under here again. Okay, these here on the drag link are 3/4, both sides. And as an FYI, the marks here I made on the steering came extremely close. I just tweaked it a little bit. The steering was a little off here to the left, but not significant. I could have left it, but you know, you're already under here, so why not? Okay, I thought I'd make a couple of last notes on this. If when turning the tie rod to get the toe in correct, this bolt lands up here somewhere, so you can't get the bolt in, then the only thing I could think to do would be to turn one of the ends and see if that resolves it. Sorry, not one of the ends. There's only one end you can do that in. It'd be either this one or the driver tire. Because I came close. It was a problem. I had to remove this bolt in order to spin the tie rod because it would run into the track bar. So that was a big deal. The other thing I would do is I would complete this connection here prior to do anything again, because that was a problem. Just to make it easier on life. I'm trying to think of what else I had. It could have caused issue. I'll re-lube or add more lube to all the points, the Zerks. I did them ahead of time. I would still measure these out because I still think it made things a little better because everything was closer. I only had to spin things a little bit to get them right, so I would still pre-measure all of this. I still have to drive around a little bit and set the steering wheel straight. It's really, really close, but it is a little bit of a bear. I've done it a couple times, and this is the point you turn to get your steering wheel back to straight. I'm almost back where I started, so who knows? It's just a aesthetics thing. It doesn't drive any different. It's just one of those things. And you can drive around with that loose while you're making those changes. You could actually hop out and make that change on the road and then keep going. Not a big process, just you have to go back and forth with it. Tedious, I guess. This bracket came very close to the end. That was kind of surprising. Oh yeah, the other thing was when doing the track bar, when I preset them, I made sure that these were about equal on both sides of the threads when I preset them, so that there was about the same amount, so that when you spun it, you didn't run out of threads on one side or the other of the track bar. That could have been problematic once you were all basically done. And that's kind of all I can think of at the moment. If you get any value out of this video, that's great. I don't really do much with YouTube, so this is like a first video, and I don't pay attention to likes, dislikes, or otherwise, so whatever. If you get information, fabulous. If you don't, then hopefully you'll find a video that does have what you're looking for. Otherwise, this was about 4.5 hours of work, and that included all the video takes that we did and what have you, and the lessons that we had to learn and unlearn as we did it. I would do it again, and I would pre-measure again, and I would preset my little marks up here for my steering, because that did come pretty close. If you can tell, it's well, depending on the angle of the camera, but yeah, you can tell. And that is pretty much it. So we'll close this out, and good luck with your project, and it's a great beefy upgrade if you do it.